He loved his hockey. It was their thing.
He was so present in his son's life. They did everything together.
He was meant to take care of kids and give them a second chance.
Ricardo Hebe is doing everything he can to be a positive influence in these kids' life. He's stabbed 3 times in the chest, and he's left for dead. Is there an old score to settle? Is this something from Ricardo's past?
We have this murderer out on the streets. Everybody was scared.
A lot of the details were just so gruesome.
The final moments of Ricardo Hebe's life must have been horrifically terrifying.
December 2018, Winnipeg, Canada. Ricardo Hebe has a lot to be grateful for this holiday season. He and his fiancée Candace are planning a big wedding in the new year. And he's found success in the real estate business. But growing up in Winnipeg's North End, this happy picture was far from guaranteed.
North End, Winnipeg is a place that has substance abuse issues related to crime. It's a city that has some real struggles.
Ricardo's early years, he had a lot of tumultuous relationships in his life with family or guardians. He kind of had to navigate on his own. We went to the same high school. His energy was so enigmatic, like everybody wanted to be around him. We just met one night and the rest was history.
His parents separated when he was young. They both left Winnipeg. He stayed because he didn't want to leave. So he ended up staying with one of his friends. We talked about his childhood. It was very broken.
On Ricardo's 16th birthday, an act of kindness changes his life.
One of his friends, his mom took him in. She was a single mom raising her own kids, and she was a foster mom as well. She just took him in, supporting him. As long as he went to school, that was the deal. And he kept that deal with her and got good grades. He was actually an honor roll student. He calls her super mom.
After Ricardo graduates from high school in 2002, he is touched by another act of kindness that changes his life.
We met through a mutual friend of ours, Sean. I've been doing home renovations and construction for 15 years now. He's like, oh, would you mind if I worked with you? I'm not gonna get paid. I just wouldn't mind, somebody teaching me how to do these things. I said, yeah, absolutely.
Over the next several years, Ricardo learns Richard's business and eventually becomes his partner.
He was successful in real estate. Like, he could have retired probably by the time he was 45 if he would have kept at it.
Then, in December 2010, when he's 26 years old, a mutual friend introduces him to Candace Walasha.
He was this mean-looking guy, but so friendly and nice. So his laugh and his smile right away. And then we just hit it off there. He said, you're mine. And I said, okay. He ended up signing his name on me that night. And I came home, my mom was like, what the hell is on you? And I was like, oh, God. I was like, I found my love. I'm like, he signed me. So we're stuck together now. I was like, I found my forever. And I did. I really did.
A year and a half later, Candace gives birth to a baby boy.
I can't even explain it. Just seeing his eyes holding Junior, that was his world. Everything was about him. He had to be with him 24/7.
On December 14th, 2014, 2 years after Junior is born, Ricardo asks Candace to marry him.
He was really excited to get married. That was kind of the last little bit to solidify their family as a unit.
But a chance encounter puts those plans on hold.
A couple of friends were doing group homework, and I think when he went there, he looked at these youth and he saw part of himself in these kids.
A group home is an environment where multiple people who are vulnerable live together. And it really hits home that these teenagers are just like him, who need stability, who need guidance.
Ricardo decides that the best way to repay the acts of kindness that turned his life around is to create his own group home for at-risk teens.
He just kind of followed his calling. He was meant to take care of kids and give them a second chance.
Transforming a property he owns into a group home takes several months and becomes Ricardo's sole focus. He even decides to postpone his wedding so he can fully concentrate on his newfound mission.
He signed up with an agency, which then certified him. He was approved, and 3 teenagers were placed in his care.
He gets to do what he loves, and he gets to keep kids off the street. And the kids loved him. He would take them to the gym. He was adamant on them going to school. He did everything with them. He wanted them to do better. They would laugh, like they would even call him the dad. They looked up to him. It was like home. We'd have supper there with the kids. Our kid was there all the time.
By the winter of 2018, 4 years after he proposed to Candace, Ricardo is ready to plan their long overdue wedding.
We planned his wedding party. I was supposed to be the best man in his wedding. He wanted to proceed with it and to get married.
As Christmas approaches, Ricardo takes his family out for one of the favorite activities he enjoys sharing with his son. Cheering on the Winnipeg Jets.
He loved his hockey. It was their thing. Like every Jets game they'd be watching, screaming. He just wanted him to be, his main thing was hockey. That's what he wanted him to do.
It was him and his son at the Jets game. He had season tickets, so he would always go to all the games and bring his son. He was so present in his son's life. They did everything together. You could just see he's just so happy and laughing.
They don't know that this happy night will be their final moments together as a family. On December 17th, Ricardo agrees to give his former business partner a hand with one of his construction jobs. At lunchtime, he tells Richard he's got to go run an errand.
I remember it vividly. Every time we leave for the night, we're not going to see each other till the next day. He would always do like this side fist bump to me. And so the day of, he was saying he has to go home, and then he's going to get something to eat, and he'll meet me back at the house. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And then he did one of those fist bumps. And I remember it was like my brain took a picture of it, because I looked over and I seen his hand, and I remember like almost taking a picture of my hand touching his hand. I looked at his hand and I pulled my hand back, and I was thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm gonna see you in 20 minutes. I just had this intuition that that was the last time I was gonna speak to him.
At 2:30 p.m., a call comes into the Winnipeg police reporting a disturbance at Ricardo Hebe's group home.
Ricardo Hebe was on the phone with a lawyer at the time. So the lawyer hears a commotion, knows that there's something wrong.
The lawyer calls 911, and patrol units are immediately dispatched to Ricardo's group home.
find Ricardo Hebe on the ground, covered in blood.
Detectives try to decipher a clue that could crack the case.
Somebody is lying. Somebody knows something about that blood stain on the door.
While they grapple with the question of who would want Ricardo Hebe dead.
We have the citizens coming together in uproar, thinking, what is going on in our city?
What did he do wrong? Nothing. He opened the door. He's trying to defend his home and defend the children in his care.
I didn't see real. I lost it because it was like a nightmare.
Winnipeg police responding to the group home run by Ricardo Hebe find him critically injured after being attacked and clinging to life.
You're looking at a chaotic scene. He's stabbed 3 times in the chest. He's left for dead. He's bleeding out. They're going to do whatever they can to save his life. The paramedics take him to the hospital as quickly as possible.
As Ricardo fights for his life, the search for clues about what happened to him immediately gets underway.
The forensic unit attend the crime scene and collect all the blood samples. They're going to collect DNA samples from different surfaces. Maybe the offender got cut in a struggle and has blood on the floor.
Detectives also launch an urgent search for witnesses. They discover that 2 of the 3 teenage residents of the group home were in the house when Ricardo was attacked.
These kids, he said, they were in their rooms at the time when this happened. The investigators have to consider everything and everyone. This attack could have been connected to any one of the 3 boys that live there.
As the investigators interview the teens at the crime scene, they have their colleagues back at the police station check into the residents' backgrounds.
Investigators ask the gang unit and in the drug unit if there's any open investigations involving the group home or the people who live in the group home. But they find the opposite, that Ricardo Hebe is running a really clean ship and he's doing everything he can to be a positive influence in these kids' life. They actually have a lot of respect for him and they speak very highly of him.
The teens also tell the police there's one more resident of the group home who's known to everyone as CH, but they haven't seen him all day.
CH was not there at the time. It's imperative that the investigators find CH and interview him as well.
Detectives get the addresses of CH's school and work and begin trying to track him down. As they do, word comes that this has just become a homicide case.
Ricardo Hebe was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Ricardo's fiancée Candace is home when she gets the call that turns her world upside down.
Hearing the words that he's dead. I didn't see real. I lost it because it was like a nightmare. I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe half the time. I would lay there like begging him to come back. He was my everything. Losing him literally destroyed my life.
I'll never forget that phone call because all I could hear was Ricardo's dead. And instantly I dropped the phone. I couldn't breathe. I fell down. I was crying. Thank God my husband was carrying our child because I was completely distraught. It was just heart-wrenching.
As Ricardo's stunned loved ones try to cope with the terrible news, Winnipeg detectives continue looking for reasons and potential suspects.
Why did the suspect do this? Is there an old score to settle? Is this maybe something from Ricardo's way past and somebody has asked this guy to go there and kill him? Who knows? But you can't rule out any of these options.
He didn't have any enemies. He didn't have anybody that had a personal vendetta against him. He never screwed somebody over.
Investigators examining the crime scene make a major discovery that they hope will shed light on what happened.
There's a camera showing the exterior of the residence, so it would show anyone coming up to the door.
Police are able to quickly review the surveillance video, and when they do, they learn the camera was an eyewitness to the murder. They are able to play back Ricardo Hibi's final moments.
The surveillance footage shows a man in a black coat walking up to the group home. There is a brief interaction. You can't hear what's said, but the man in the black coat pulls out a knife, stabs Ricardo 3 times.
The crime was shocking. Here's a guy who is running a group home for vulnerable children. What did he do wrong? Nothing. He opened the door. He's trying to defend his home and defend the children in his care. And then he gets stabbed. The final moments of Ricardo Hibi's life must have been horrifically terrifying.
Despite showing the murder, the footage yields no clues to the identity of Ricardo's killer.
Unfortunately, the images are grainy, they're fuzzy, and they're just not good.
The exterior camera showed the suspect wearing a black jacket with a fur-trimmed hood. The hood was up.
The footage shows that Ricardo's attacker approached from the street and never entered the house.
The 2 kids who were in the house, they're ruled out at this point.
For detectives, it's now more urgent to find the one resident who was not home at the time of the murder, CH.
It's imperative that the investigators find CH and interview him. Maybe he knows something that the other kids didn't know. And also to be able to account for his location at the time the offense happened.
It's not clear where CH was at the time of Ricardo Hibi's death.
Police are just trying to piece together if he's connected to all of this.
The day after Ricardo Hibi is stabbed to death, detectives are urgently searching for the one resident of Ricardo's group home who cannot be accounted for, a teen known to his friends as CH.
At this point, the investigators still haven't tracked down CH. The first obvious place to check would be the school and his place of work. It turns out that he didn't attend either of them on that day, which is a little weird because he was expected to be in school and he was scheduled to be at work, but he didn't show up for either. And there's no account of where he is or where he could be. So they cannot rule him out or rule him in any way at this point.
News of Ricardo's murder spreads through Winnipeg, stirring both grief and anger.
This was quite a high-profile murder in Winnipeg. It affected a lot of people. And the question I kept coming back to was, for what? Why did this happen? There's really no clear answer. I thought it was just so brutal because of the fact that Ricardo was quite a pillar in the north end of Winnipeg. It was just such a sad story. I mean, this man dedicated his life to trying to help young men who were in a similar position to him, so it seemed just so tragic that he would die while doing something good for the community. It just felt very cold and brutal.
We have the citizens coming together in uproar, thinking, what is going on in our city? We have this murderer out on the streets. We're all going out in support because we don't want this to die in the media. We want it to be up close and personal with every resident of this city because this is all of our issue. You know, it was my best friend who lost his life, but it could be my neighbors tomorrow. Everybody was scared. And so I think pushing it in the media was the only way that we were going to get any traction with finding this guy.
Two days after Ricardo Hibi's murder, as detectives continue to search for CH, police get an unexpected visitor.
On December 19, CH arrived at police headquarters and tells the officer at the desk that he understands that homicide investigators want to speak to him. He tells police that he doesn't know who would have had reason to attack Ricardo. He doesn't believe it had anything to do with him. He certainly denies being part of the attack or having any knowledge whatsoever of it. The investigators want to know, where was he at the time of the attack? CH tells the investigators that he was at his girlfriend's house. His alibi is that he spent the whole afternoon with her, and that's why he didn't go to school, and that's why he didn't go to work. He said that he was dealing with some relationship issues, and that's why he hadn't come forward. And he claims that he didn't know anything about the homicide until he had recently heard about it, that police wanted to speak with him. CH says that he was with his girlfriend, Trinity Moore. Police now have to confirm that alibi.
CH gives detectives Trinity's address. They head straight to her house to check his story.
When police arrive at Trinity's address, they see that there's a blood stain on her front door. Trinity denies any knowledge of it, and she says that's the first time that she's seen that blood.
Trinity consents to police taking samples from the blood that's found on her front door.
The blood samples are sent to the police lab for testing as detectives continue their interview with Trinity. They ask if she can confirm CH's alibi, that he was with her on December 17th, the day of the murder.
Trinity told the investigators that CH does come over a lot, and he stays over there, and he spends lots of time with her at her home. However, she says that on the day of the homicide, he was not there.
In fact, Trinity tells the detectives she hasn't seen CH in days.
He's saying that he was there all day. She said, no, he wasn't. So someone's lying. Somebody knows something about that blood stain on the door.
Detectives investigating the stabbing death of Ricardo Hibi believe a teenage resident of Ricardo's group home has lied to them about where he was at the time of the murder.
CH says that he was with his girlfriend, Trinity Moore, but she said that she didn't see CH that day.
With his alibi in doubt, investigators now wait to see if DNA tests on the blood found on Trinity's door can connect CH to the murder. But they also have some follow-up questions for him. This time, CH is easier to locate. They find him standing outside the group home where he lives.
CH tells them that Trinity is mistaken, and he said that sometimes she takes medication and she forgets things, but he's actually angry that she says that he wasn't there because he is adamant that he was there. His alibi is very shaky, but there is no physical evidence to tie him to the scene. At this point, there is certainly not enough evidence to charge CH with anything.
4 days after Ricardo's murder, just 4 days before Christmas, the DNA test results from the blood stains on Trinity's door come in.
Those bloodstains came back as a match to Ricardo Hibi's DNA.
It is not contaminated with anybody else's DNA. It is Ricardo Hibi's DNA, and it is definitely something that happened after his attack. This is a huge break in the case because now there is a direct link from the crime scene to Trinity's front door. So somebody who killed Ricardo went through that front door and deposited Ricardo's blood on the door.
The test results convince detectives that Trinity knows more than she's told them about how Ricardo's blood got on her door. They rush back to her home to confront her. And that's when her story about the day of the murder changes.
She says that CH was there, that he was actually hiding in the back room. Trinity told the investigators that they have a rocky relationship at this time, and they had a fight. She says her brother, Kane, became aware of the altercation that she had had with CH and was furious. She didn't tell her brother that CH was in the back room, and her brother, Kane, left and he went looking for CH. She actually provided her brother with the address of the group home. And when he came back, he had blood on him, and as he left the blood on the door handle at the front of the house.
She says that he shows up, she sees his hands are bloody, and she sees him in possession of a knife, and she observes there's blood on it.
Was he looking to find CH and thought he killed CH? Or was he just lashing out at somebody? There's a couple of different possibilities here. The investigators show Trinity the images from the security camera from the front of the house where the attack is captured. She actually tells the investigators that her brother Kane has a jacket like that.
Trinity told investigators that she hadn't seen her brother since the day of Ricardo's murder.
She lied to police because she didn't want to get her brother in trouble. She was trying to protect her boyfriend as well.
With Trinity's statement, CH is cleared of any suspicion.
Now the investigation has taken a completely different turn. It looks now like Kane Moore is the #1 suspect. Once he was identified as a suspect, the investigators are going to look at his record.
Kane had a history of violence. He had a history of unprovoked attacks. Kane went to Stony Mountain, which is just outside Winnipeg. It's a federal prison. It's for serious and violent offenders.
While he's in the penitentiary, he's involved in another serious incident. He's a suspect in another stabbing inside in the penitentiary.
Kane was facing charges related to the death of another inmate.
Despite the pending charges, investigators learned that in October 2018, 2 months before Ricardo was stabbed to death, Kane Moore was granted parole and released from prison.
He's a very dangerous person, but he was not designated a dangerous offender by the courts.
He wasn't even supposed to be out on the street. In his parole documents, it stated that he is high risk to reoffend, and somehow he was let out.
When I found out, I was furious. How do you allow someone out who killed someone inside? If you can't protect people in there, how are you supposed to protect them out?
He's very volatile and he's got a very dangerous background, so it's urgent to find him as soon as possible.
Winnipeg detectives are on the hunt for 21-year-old Kane Moore, the prime suspect in the murder of Ricardo Hibi.
At this point of the investigation, the investigators have to find Kane Moore. It is imperative that they find Kane Moore.
Kane's sister, Trinity, tells the detectives that she has not seen or heard from him since December 17th, the day of the murder. Investigators begin tracking down other family members, hoping for a lead to his whereabouts.
His family are somewhat cooperative. They say that they haven't seen him in quite some time, but it can only be taken at face value because they could quite easily shelter him. The investigators went to all the known hangouts and the areas where Kane Moore has frequented and is known to frequent. They're not getting the best cooperation in these neighborhoods. Nobody wants to be seen speaking to the investigators. Nobody certainly wants to cooperate with them. And they draw blank. They're not getting anywhere. Kane Moore's parole has been revoked at this point, so the investigators get a Canada-wide warrant for Kane Moore. They'd circulate a bulletin with his picture and his description to every officer.
After 2 weeks of an intensive search that began just before Christmas, police still have no sightings of Kane.
Nobody knows where he is. It looks like he's gone to ground and nobody can find him. He's on the run.
It was a brutal holiday season for Ricardo's friends and family. They're dealing with this awful tragedy, but they also have no answers. There are very few details at this point about where the main suspect in this murder is.
It took a huge toll on me, physically, mentally. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping from the stress of it.
That just completely shattered everybody. It's unexplainable. My brain was numb. I just was trying to, soak in the shock.
Another week goes by with no progress in the manhunt. Then, on January 6th, 2019,
cadets that work with the Winnipeg Police Service came across an individual that was just walking on the street, and they were concerned that he was intoxicated.
They approached the individual who provided them with a false name. However, when they detained him for being intoxicated and they searched his pocket, they found identification in the name of Kane Moore with a photograph that matched him.
Once cadets clue in and realize that they have the main suspect in Ricardo Hibi's murder, they call detectives immediately.
The cadets take Kane into custody and bring him to the station.
Kane Moore was arrested wearing a black winter jacket. The man who appeared in the surveillance video taken of Ricardo Hibi's death was also wearing a black jacket.
But when detectives show Kane the images from Ricardo Hibi's security camera, he insists it's not him.
He doesn't give anything up.
Kane Moore clams up, he denies any involvement in the murder, and he asks for a lawyer.
Kane Moore never admits to attacking Ricardo Hibi, and he never admits to killing him.
But when investigators examine the jacket Kane was wearing when he was arrested, they make a critical discovery.
Police found bloodstains inside that jacket. Investigators test the blood that's found in this black jacket, and the DNA matches Ricardo Hibi's DNA. Kane Moore is arrested for the murder of Ricardo Hibi.
There's a lot of inexplicable killings that occur, but in this case, even though there was no clear motive, there is enough evidence to suggest that Mr. Moore was upset with CH.
Kane Moore wanted to get into the house to find CH, and Ricardo blocked him. He was protecting the kids in his house and doing what he was supposed to do. And Kane Moore wanted to get in there and lashed out the way he always does, violently.
Kane Moore is charged with 1 count of second-degree murder. Ricardo Hebe's loved ones are shocked to find out he was killed by a stranger.
Kane Moore, he's never been around us. We never had him at the house. Like, we had no idea who he was.
The news kind of came out that it was just some random guy. I was angry. We'll ever sit down and have a conversation if this guy asked me for forgiveness. I don't think I could do that.
Kane Moore's trial begins in September 2020. Prosecutors are confident they have the evidence to convict him of murder. They call their star witness, Trinity Moore, the accused killer's sister, to the stand and ask her about what she saw the day Ricardo was murdered.
Trinity Moore gave a sworn statement to police that her brother Kane Moore showed up, that she saw he had bloody hands.
Trinity Moore recants her statement when she's called as a witness. She tells a completely different story. When Trinity Moore changed her story, now there's the possibility of an acquittal.
Kane Moore is on trial for the murder of Ricardo Hebe. Prosecutors expect his sister, Trinity, to testify that he came to her home after the murder, covered with blood, and confessed. But her testimony stuns them.
When she gets up on the stand, she completely contradicts what she had told investigators.
She says that her brother was not involved and never came over.
She said that when she spoke to police, she didn't know what she was saying because she was high and drunk at the time.
When Trinity made the 180 turn on her story, it throws a wrench in the prosecution's case.
But even without Trinity's testimony, prosecutors can make their case to the jury solely based on the physical evidence.
That black coat that Kane Moore was arrested wearing wound up being a central piece of evidence.
There was video surveillance and forensic DNA evidence. We played the surveillance videos that show the individual approaching the residence, and we showed the actual stabbing. We also showed Kane Moore leaving the house.
The video surveillance and the forensic DNA evidence links him to that house.
Candace was there every single day. She seemed extremely strong given the circumstances, but when that surveillance video was played in court, she left sobbing, but she was there start to finish. I don't really know how she did it because a lot of the details were just so gruesome.
The jury deliberates for 6 hours. And on September 24th, 2020, reaches its verdict.
He was convicted of second-degree murder.
He's got a life sentence with no chance of parole for 15 years.
For Ricardo's family and friends, the sentence only adds to their pain.
He did not deserve anything less but life in prison with no eligibility for parole. And that's something that is still hurting us because he's still going to be eligible to come out eventually.
It's a really sad irony because Kane Moore is the exact type of young man Ricardo Hebe would have wanted to help. So you can't help but wonder if things could have gone differently. that didn't need to end up like that.
I accepted that there's nothing I could have changed. There's nothing that anybody could have done.
It wasn't even supposed to be for him. This shouldn't even happen. He was taken from me. Not having him around, I am very, very lost still.
Despite the pain they live with every day, Ricardo's loved ones try to stay strong and keep Ricardo's memory alive, especially for his son, Junior.
Everybody dealt with it in their own way. I still have a good relationship with his son. I'm godfather to his son. I've made him a promise when he was alive, and I'm just fulfilling that promise to look after his son.
I want people to know that his heart was there. He wanted the best for these kids. It's just, everyone knows his legacy was left. And his smile, and just how genuine he is. And that's why I want to keep going. Our son has love for hockey. So he's an all-star now. Ready, he wants to play the Jets, he says. I said, do it. Your dad would be proud. He would watch you. He's a little hockey star now. But now I'm a hockey mom, so I got this. Did it for him and his dad.
We were supposed to go out to eat. So she goes, let's do it after New Year's because we don't want to be outside with these clowns when they're acting up during New Year's.
We can see this person go to Jamie's apartment and then is seen again exiting. His sweatshirt was blood-soaked.
It looked like a pretty brutal fight had taken place in that bedroom.
How could this have happened? They didn't have any answers for me.
We thought it was unlikely that it was a random act of violence.
We pull up Jamie's Facebook and see if she's friends with this guy. And she was. You wonder what his mindset is. What's he capable of?
New Year of 2016. Sioux Falls, South Dakota. 28-year-old Jamie Wounded Arrow is looking forward to an exciting new year. She's got a new home and big plans.
She had gotten her own apartment. She had gotten this job, and she loved it. She was proud of the fact that she did all of this stuff on her own. It kind of gave her that confidence, like, I can do this. Now I wonder how much more I can do.
Born on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota and a member of the Oglala Lakota tribe, Jamie is the youngest of 8 children.
When Jamie was born, there was a lot of us in the family, always trying to hold Jamie, always trying to be with Jamie.
She was a complete mama's girl. She loved her mom.
That bond that Jamie and my mom had together was unbreakable.
Jamie has always been proud of her Native American heritage, and it is a central part of her identity.
Being Oglala Lakota was like everything for her. There was like a sense of freedom, and I saw that from her.
And there's another part of Jamie's identity that she's proud of. Though her assigned sex at birth was male, she has always identified as female.
Jamie started to know that she was transgender and never hid that from day one. Especially how she would dress, the makeup, the way she carried herself, and into the schools. None of that was hidden. My mom would help Jamie and they would get through things together. My mom was always there for Jamie.
In some Native American cultures, the term used to describe a transgender person is two-spirited.
It's pretty much used everywhere now as the Native American community. If you're LGBT, this is what you are. It's just something that we're born with. This is how we walk. We walk both worlds.
While Jamie was accepted by her own family, others on the reservation weren't as open-minded.
Jamie had a heavy weight on her due to being transgender. The negativity that was going around and what Jamie had to go against.
She used to tell us stories about how she was picked on, and she really didn't seem like she could be herself.
In high school, the emotional toll drives Jamie to drug and alcohol abuse.
There were some struggles that Jamie had, and those are the things that I think Jamie used as a coping mechanism for that. But as time went on, Jamie started to find herself in a positive way.
When Jamie is 26, she decides to leave the reservation in search of a more supportive community and to start working on her sobriety. She moves to Sioux Falls and soon connects with a support group for the Indigenous LGBT community.
We were running the Sioux Falls Two-Spirit and Allies Society. So she walked over and she goes, "Are you guys Two-Spirit?" And we're like, "Yeah." And we just kind of sat and visited like we already knew each other. It seemed like she felt free. She could actually be herself. She got on the track of, actually I'm gonna sober up. Then she went to treatment. She got better. She would contact me for support in her sobriety just because I knew her struggle and I was sober. It was more like a big sister, little sister thing of just watching out for each other.
Now in 2016, Jamie has hit the 2-year mark of sobriety and feels she is finally in control of her future. She lands her dream job as a telemarketer, where she gets to connect with people from all walks of life.
She had gotten this job that it was 5-star call center here. She loved it. And she actually sat and told me, she goes, "Sister, I feel like I'm good. I finally feel like I'm good now, in a good place."
On New Year's Eve 2016, Jamie opts for a quiet night at home after picking up some takeout.
Jamie and I spoke over the phone. We were supposed to go out to eat. So she goes, "All right, well, let's do it after New Year's because we don't want to be outside with these clowns when they're acting up during New Year's." And I said, "Okay, yeah, we'll do it."
At 8:30 p.m., she settles in for the evening.
Jamie had posted a meme of Marge Simpson laid out in a bed, obviously sleeping. And Jamie posted it in a joking kind of way, indicating that although she knew most of her friends would be out partying that night, she had no intention of doing so.
And Jamie's sending out some text messages to family and friends that said, "Happy New Year."
Her loved ones don't know it is the final time they will ever hear from her. As the new year begins, Jamie grows uncharacteristically quiet. No calls, no emails, no texts, no online posts.
When Jamie initially stopped communicating using her cell phone, her friends didn't reach out to law enforcement initially, perhaps out of a desire to give their friends some privacy.
On January 6th, Sioux Falls police respond to a call for a wellness check at an apartment near the city center.
The apartment manager called law enforcement after she had received some type of complaint from a tenant.
I was at home in bed, got a call. A young lady was walking down the hallway and she could smell something.
When patrol officers arrive, they knock on the door of the apartment that seems to be the source of the odor. The landlord provides them with the tenant's name, Jamie Wounded Arrow. There's no answer, so they force their way in.
Nothing seemed to be in disarray in either the living room or the kitchen, but that was a different story once you entered the bedroom. You immediately noticed blood all over the walls, on the ceilings.
There were smear marks. The bedding was all over the place and full of blood. The floor was full of blood.
It looked like a pretty brutal fight had taken place in that bedroom.
Given the condition of the scene, the patrol officers call in the homicide squad. Detectives quickly arrive and continue searching through the apartment.
The closet doors were the type that slide back and forth, and they had been broken off with the hinges.
In the closet was Jamie. On her back, she'd been secreted in that closet. Her shirt was pulled up, and I could see what appeared to me to be stab wounds to her chest. Jamie's body's obviously in a state of decomposition. What's going through my head is that we are way behind. Everyone talks about the first 48. We're way beyond that. We're way past 4 or 5 days. We have homicides that are pretty much cut and dry, but it was apparent to me that this would be a whodunit.
Investigators follow a dark trail of clues left by a killer.
The knife was found in the bedroom. There was blood on it.
Our coroner had no problem saying that he believed that that was the murder weapon. When you're looking at video and you see someone enter, and when he exits, he's blood-soaked, you start to key in on that.
And find themselves in a race against the clock.
Anytime you have, especially a homicide suspect who's on the run, who's also on the run from parole, you still wonder what his mindset is. Is this an isolated incident? What's he capable of?
Sioux Police have discovered the body of Jamie Wounded Arrow, stabbed to death in a closet in her apartment. They believe she has been dead for several days.
The body is speaking to you, and it's saying a lot. I had some questions in regards to how Jamie's shirt was when she was stabbed. We pulled her shirt back down, and we could match the stab wounds on her chest to the rips in the fabric. So that helps to tell the story that her shirt was down when she was attacked. I believe he just attempted to secret her in the closet. When he pulls her by the shirt to get her in the closet, the shirt comes up around her neck.
As they wait for the coroner to arrive, detectives turn to the rest of Jamie's apartment, searching for any clues.
So in this crime scene, you're looking for things that are there, and more importantly, things that aren't there. Her phone isn't there. There's no purse there. It's apparent that somebody has left with these things.
Although these items are missing, detectives don't see any signs of a break-in. As they continue to scour her apartment, they discover what they believe could be the murder weapon.
The knife was found in the bedroom. There was blood on it. Jamie's body sustained 7 stab wounds, all of which were consistent with a 3.5 to 4 inch blade of a kitchen knife.
That knife was bagged, sent into the lab for forensic testing. Our coroner had no problem saying that he believed that that was the murder weapon.
With a killer on the loose, investigators know they must move quickly.
Jamie's phone was missing. Obviously, that becomes a major focus with some of the investigators that I've tasked to find her phone. So there are subpoenas being written, search warrants, everything we can do possible to find the phone. The other huge thing in today's day and age is video.
Jamie's apartment complex had surveillance cameras stationed at various locations on the property, near the entrances and exits to the buildings themselves.
You're literally praying that these cameras are functional. So there's phone calls being made to management to have them save and preserve all that videotape.
While they wait to get the video, detectives are faced with the difficult task of contacting Jamie's family.
When I had gotten that call, I just asked why. Why has this happened? And how could this have happened? They didn't have any answers for me. Then I let my mom know. And that was hard to relay that information to her because she had dementia. It brought tears to our eyes because it was devastating. It was unreal. It was heartbreaking.
When I got the news, it was a big shock, a huge shock for us. How did this happen?
News of the murder of a Native American transgender woman brutally stabbed in her own home quickly spreads.
It's unusual. It is still headline news when a murder happens in Sioux Falls. So the fact that it happened on New Year's Eve to a member of the trans community was a really big deal. They wanted to make sure a killer was brought to justice.
In search of answers, detectives begin questioning Jamie's neighbors.
It was a huge apartment complex. I'd say probably 1,000 people living there.
It seemed to be a place where people kept to themselves, people minded their own business, and so it wouldn't be unusual for a tenant to not be seen by his or her neighbors for a number of days.
But you can't discount someone in the building having knowledge and potentially being involved. So we talked to all of them just to find if they were witnesses, and the canvas ended up revealing really nothing. Nobody heard anything.
Detectives also look for clues in Jamie's cell phone records and activity on social media. It ends with her post at 11:08 p.m. on New Year's Eve.
There was nothing there. This is the last communication she has. There is no usage of her phone, no private messages or DMs.
Meanwhile, investigators get the answer they are hoping for regarding the apartment complex's security cameras. They were working, and the video is available.
Detectives immediately retrieve the video, and they start to pick it apart.
It's a situation where you're waiting with bated breath to see, is our perpetrator going to show himself to us?
Detectives are pouring through security footage from Jamie Wounded Arrow's apartment complex frame by frame, hoping to find clues about what happened in her final moments.
You have to watch every second of it because you don't know what's going to be missed.
The video shows Jamie arriving home at 8:30 p.m. on New Year's Eve. The investigators don't see anything unusual in the footage after that, until several hours later.
We had surveillance footage that showed a person arriving to her apartment complex at around 3:30 in the morning.
About 2 minutes after that, you see him walk back and out the apartment complex. About a minute or two later, he reappears and comes back to the entry of the apartment complex, walks down the stairs to what is Jamie's apartment, and then is seen again an hour and 10 minutes later exiting the apartment complex.
Investigators believe they are looking at Jamie's killer. He is the only person seen on surveillance during the window of time in which Jamie was murdered.
It was like hitting a jackpot. You can't believe how lucky you are, how lucky that the cameras were recording, that the footage was still there, that it captured our suspect.
But the video doesn't give the investigators a clear look at the man's face. Still, what they see leads them to believe this is possibly someone who Jamie knows.
The suspect knocked on the door for a significant amount of time, received no response. He walked out, walked around the apartment complex, banged on her window, woke her up. He came back in, and she let him in the house. It's highly unlikely that he's a stranger.
When he arrived to Jamie's apartment, he was wearing basketball shorts, sneakers, and a sweatshirt. His appearance changed when he came out of Jamie's apartment sometime after 4:40 in the morning.
What they see next convinces detectives they are indeed looking at Jamie's killer.
And you could read that this was a sweatshirt that said Peabody Energy on it. And it appeared to me that the sweatshirt was bloody. I'd go so far as to say blood-soaked. When you're looking at video and you see someone enter and when he exits, he's blood-soaked, you start to key in on that.
Then we see him walk over to a hill with kind of a grove of trees, and he starts throwing things into this little ravine, and then he disappears from view.
Officers rush to the ravine behind the apartment complex and begin searching the area.
We found Jamie's clutch purse with Jamie's ID and Social Security card in it, and a debit card. There was no money in it. We don't know if he had taken money out of it, but he certainly had not taken the debit card out of it.
As they investigate, detectives also ponder potential motives for the vicious attack.
In my mind, there was some motive besides robbery. We thought it was unlikely that it was a random act of violence, given that we had seen the perpetrator's behavior on the surveillance footage, and he appeared to know his victim. Investigators wondered whether Jamie's status as a trans female was a motive here. It certainly could have been, so we had to look at it as if it was potentially a hate crime.
I remember on the news they kept saying, she's now the second or third transgender woman in the United States to be killed on New Year's. It was a shock.
Searching for any evidence to support that possibility or point to a different motive for this murder, detectives begin a deep dive into Jamie's background. They quickly uncover some troubling information about her past.
She battled addiction. She had had some run-ins with the criminal justice system. So she had a lot of struggles. She was battling through them and doing the best that she could.
The investigators learned that Jamie's struggles included a conviction for drug possession. As a result, the court had ordered her into a treatment program.
She had been to the Arch, which is a halfway house in Sioux Falls. A halfway house means you're coming out of incarceration and they're trying to blend you back into society. There's AA meetings, there's any number of things that are geared to get a person who's in that system back out into society. But I knew from our investigation that while she was at the Arch, she came into contact with many felons.
We know that sometimes people who are in treatment use the connections they make at those facilities for good, as we believe Jamie did. We also know people often use those connections for bad. There were a number of red flags raised.
Detectives, if someone Jamie Wounded Era met during her stay at a halfway house might have been involved in her murder. Looking for any connection, they examined the data from Jamie's missing cell phone, and they find something unexpected.
We learned that 2 calls had been placed after the time the likely perpetrator had left Jamie's apartment. She had already been killed. So we knew it wasn't her using the phone. It had to be the killer. Law enforcement was able to determine that the first call was in this dial.
We could see through the records, we got a hold of this gentleman who had nothing to do with the case.
After the wrong number, the records show the second call from Jamie's phone came at around 5 a.m. on New Year's Day to a woman named Brianna White Butterfly.
She told investigators the call had been placed to her from her boyfriend. She identified him by name, Joshua LeClaire. She indicated to law enforcement that she had been with him earlier in the night on New Year's Eve, and that he'd left at some point that night.
They had argued, he was drunk, and he had left the house, and he did not have a phone. And she was wondering whose phone he was using to call her in the early morning hours.
We learned Joshua LeClaire is a Native American man who was raised on the Pine Ridge Reservation and in Rapid City, South Dakota. He also had a conviction for first-degree burglary from 2011. He was sent to prison for that. He was released on parole in 2016, but absconded, meaning he disappeared, ceased communications with his parole officer, and had a warrant out for his arrest at the time Jamie died.
Joshua LeClaire is now the prime suspect in Jamie's murder. And as detectives dig further into his past, they find a clear connection between him and Jamie.
Joshua and Jamie knew each other. We know they had contact together at the Arch in Sioux Falls when both of them were going through treatment.
There's obviously a connection there. So we pull up Jamie's Facebook and see if she's friends with this guy. And she was.
We know that they had some communications, though we're not sure of the extent of their relationship and what it all entailed.
Investigators hope Jamie's family can fill in some blanks about the relationship.
It started out as far as Jamie helping with money, with $20 here and $20 here. And I don't know if there was a relationship there or what, but it had started because he was there also at the Arch.
While Joshua LeClaire does seem to resemble the man in the security video, the footage is grainy, and detectives have no physical evidence linking him to the murder, or a motive for him to have killed someone who appears to be a friend.
There was no evidence to show that Josh held any ill will towards her. None of this makes sense.
The investigators are ready to confront Joshua to see if he can clear things up.
We immediately put out what we call a BOLO, or be on the lookout, for Josh.
As they search for him, detectives also track down his friends and press them for leads on his whereabouts.
Law enforcement started with Joshua's immediate circle, his girlfriend, friends who knew him, perhaps friends who had spent time with him in the days leading up to Jamie's murder. That led them to one of Joshua's friends who had spent time with him on New Year's Eve.
The friend, Roscoe Poorbear, has an unexpected and stunning story to tell.
Roscoe Poorbear told law enforcement he had in fact been with Joshua on the early morning hours of New Year's Day. Roscoe noticed that Joshua was wearing a bloody sweatshirt and saw Joshua throw the sweatshirt into a dumpster at a construction site. They were able to go to the construction site and they found the sweatshirt just where Roscoe said it would be.
The bloody sweatshirt appears to be the same one worn by the man in the surveillance video from Jamie's apartment complex.
To be able to see the logo of that sweatshirt on the camera, to find that sweatshirt in a dumpster when a witness had said, this is where Joshua Clare threw this sweatshirt. That was a very important part of the case, to see that.
As they send the sweatshirt to the forensics lab for testing, police also send the search for Joshua LeClaire into high gear.
At this point, efforts to locate Joshua are ramping up significantly, with statewide law enforcement to check all corners of the state for locations Joshua may possibly be. The concern was, has he fled?
Anytime you have, especially a homicide suspect who's on the run, who's also on the run from parole, you still wonder what his mindset is. Is this an isolated incident? What's he capable of?
Will LeClaire, prime suspect in the murder of Jamie Wounded Arrow. He's been on the run for 2 days, and investigators have no leads to where he could be hiding. Until Sioux Falls police respond to a routine call for help.
Local law enforcement were called to a report of an intoxicated person. They thought this was a call of a drunken, disorderly person who needed to go to detox. Police show up, and initially they don't know who they're speaking to because the man gives them a false name.
He lied about who he was. Patrol officers didn't know going in that they were dealing with Josh LeClaire.
But once the officers arrest him for creating a public disturbance, they discover his true identity. Homicide detectives rush to the station to interrogate him about Jamie's murder.
When Detective Bakke got Joshua into the interview room, he was intoxicated, and Detective Bakke knew that he had to buy himself some time. He offered Joshua coffee, offered him cigarettes in an effort to help him sober up.
As soon as the detective sits down with his suspect, something catches his eye.
Joshua had a significant laceration on his palm.
We knew, based on the nature of Jamie's wounds, that the kitchen knife was the murder weapon. And Joshua LeClaire's injury was consistent with using a knife to stab another person. Detective Bakke smartly didn't mention it for a number of hours. It was there, he saw it, and he waited for the right opportunity to talk to Joshua about it.
You come and confront him, there's going to be an immediate denial. It's human nature, and it's getting by that denial. It's working around that denial and getting to the truth. That's what takes time. He didn't ever deny knowing Jamie. He didn't deny going to her apartment. He simply used the excuse that he was blackout drunk and could only remember bits and pieces of why he was there and what had happened during the interaction.
But Detective Bakke continues to press him harder and harder.
We started to broach the fact that he was in the apartment and there was a fight.
Joshua said that he and Jamie had argued over a pair of shoes, but Joshua's excuse didn't make sense. The brutality of her murder was not consistent with an argument over shoes.
As I began to press a bit, Josh eventually did say that he got the cut on his hand from stabbing Jamie.
This was a confession. This meant, on top of all of the other evidence we had to that point, we had an admission: he is the killer.
The evidence in this case, it was stacked.
We had surveillance footage showing Joshua LeClaire had been to Jamie's apartment. We saw him on video throwing items of Jamie's into the ravine. We knew he had an injury to his hand, which could only have been caused by stabbing someone repeatedly and a knife sliding up his palm. We knew from Roscoe Poorbear that Joshua had the same sweatshirt we saw him wearing at Jamie's apartment, only when Roscoe saw it, it was bloody.
And when the lab results come in, they show the blood on the sweatshirt matches both Joshua LeClaire and Jamie Wounded Arrow.
All of that, along with Joshua's confession, left no doubt in anyone's mind that he was the killer. We don't know if Joshua panicked after he killed Jamie. He did some things which seemed counterintuitive. He left the knife, he took her IDs, but left his blood.
To a casual observer, someone who watches crime show TVs, they would question, why would the suspect do that? Well, the biggest factor, in my opinion, is that this person's never killed before. It doesn't make sense because it can't make sense.
What we do know is that he did enough in his mind to try to avoid getting caught.
On January 8th, 2017, Sioux Falls police charged Joshua LeClaire with first-degree murder for the stabbing death of Jamie Wounded Arrow. But even after a long interrogation, investigators still don't know his motive or what happened to Jamie in her final moments.
In regards to the transgender portion of this case and potential hate crime, it simply wasn't there.
In my opinion, the brutality of the crime certainly indicated that Joshua knew Jamie and that he was motivated by some sense of hatred, even if not necessarily based on her status as a trans woman. We don't know if he made advances toward her that were rejected or a drunken fight of some sort, an argument. Just the viciousness of the attack signaled to me that there was something deeper beyond just a casual acquaintanceship.
Faced with the overwhelming evidence against him, Joshua LeClaire pleads guilty. But before the court can hold a sentencing hearing, the confessed killer drops a bombshell.
At his pre-sentencing interview, Joshua LeClaire gave information that changed everything.
Joshua LeClaire has pleaded guilty to stabbing Jamie Wounded Arrow to death in her Sioux Falls apartment. He's never said why he did it, but before he can be sentenced, he makes a stunning claim.
He told the investigator that there had been a sexual advance made towards him and Jamie had grabbed a knife and he had defended himself.
At first, he said there was an argument over shoes. It wasn't until his sentencing was looming that he said Jamie had made a sexual advance toward him, that he felt threatened by it, and he stabbed her in self-defense. It was offensive, frankly, to have Joshua try to shame Jamie in this way. There were no indications that she had made any advances toward him.
I don't believe it to be true in any way, shape, or form. I believe that's a person who's at the end of the road and is about to be sentenced, is going to say anything.
The only person here who had defensive wounds to her hands and her forearms was Jamie, whereas Joshua had none of that. The only wound Joshua had was the injury to his palm, which was as a direct result of stabbing Jamie so many times. At this point, we felt Joshua LeClaire was kind of like an animal backed into a corner. It's not unusual for defendants to shame the victim before sentencing. At the same time, we had to wonder whether the sentencing judge would consider it as true.
The answer comes on June 26, 2018, when Joshua LeClaire appears in court for his sentencing hearing.
Joshua asked for a lenient sentence, but he spoke about Jamie in the abstract as if he didn't know her. He said something to the effect of, "No one deserves to be killed this way." when he was the one who did it, it showed a remarkable sense of selfishness and a lack of true remorse.
I just remember being there, and I remember seeing him. And I just kind of looked over like this, and I remember it was like, it was real.
When it's somebody that you love, it's anger, it's sadness, it's a lot of emotions. And in my statement there, I did mention that he should rot in prison too.
The judge rejects the claim of self-defense and sentences 27-year-old Joshua LeClaire to 65 years in prison.
Making him an old man by the time he gets out. It is, for all intents and purposes, a life sentence for him.
This individual that took our sister's life, our baby sister's life, he got, what was given to him. So that was a tough thing to do, to be sitting in front of that male who did that. I think I cried for, I felt like forever.
For Jamie's loved ones, the outcome is bittersweet.
They were overjoyed that justice had been done, in spite of what had been done to Jamie. But there was a sense of dissatisfaction in that Joshua never really told the whole story. And we'll probably never know the real reason he was there and what happened between them.
I really miss seeing how happy she was when she started accomplishing some of her goals. A sense of happiness. Yes, I did it.
There's a lot of what ifs with Jamie's life being cut short and my mom having dementia. It wasn't just that one time that I had to break the story to her. It was every time that I went to go visit her. I would have to tell her each time that it was Jamie that was gone. And each time that brought tears to her eyes. And we had to relive it. People who go through this, you have to have strength within yourself to continue on, to live your life also, to live for them.
One moment.